I want to introduce now a good friend, an expert who had a crazy dream, I would say, to map every telecommunication network in the world and to scan it very, very deep and to present it from the White House to the different other governments to NGOs to the free people to see with our own eyes who is the threat of the future and present world. I'm introducing John Strand. John, welcome to Romania, and I look forward to your presentation.
I must start to say to Mr. Pittenger, to Pavel, and to the Parliament here, thank you for the invitation. It's not my first time to Romania. First time I came to this country was in the Christmas 1978-79. Some people claim that it was the good olden days. I will not claim that, but trust me, this country have changed a lot, and I'm so happy to see how it's evolved. I have for the last 25 years worked with telecommunication industry on a global perspective, providing mobile operators and other operators across the world with strategic information about this industry's evolving. And also we are involved talking a lot about what is the impact of regulation, what's happening, threats to the industry, cybersecurity threats and stuff like that. Through my work, I have always had, because I come from Denmark, a view on freedom, freedom of speech. Always appreciated the fact of living in a democracy. I was so happy to see, I was in Berlin when the wall went down. I was so happy to see how the Eastern European countries became a part of the European Union. I'm so happy to see how these countries, which many of them I actually had the opportunity to visit before the war went down, how they've evolved. And definitely Romania is one of those countries. Just to put it into perspective, some of the things I'm saying is things I've said for years, and then suddenly more and more people open their eyes. I remember when the Germans decided to shut down for nuclear power before they had an alternative, and I said, that's not smart. And Germany became very dependent on Russian gas. Is that a problem? Yes, it is. Europeans' dependency of Russian gas today, I think we can all agree about that, is a huge problem. And there's a big risk that we will face a cold winter, we will face a winter where some companies have to shut down their production because we not have enough energy in Europe to do these things. That's not nice. That was a political bummer. It was not a surprise because my opinion is, the view I have on Putin today is equal to the opinion I've had for many years, and I think there's a lot of people who share that opinion with me. Here comes another thing. What do you think is most important for a modern society? To have enough energy or to have a digital infrastructure? In 2020, here it is. In 2020, we did a mapping of all the Chinese equipment there was in mobile networks across 102 networks in Europe. And basically, a number of countries like Cyprus or Belgium, 100% of the infrastructure was delivered by Chinese vendors like Huawei and ZTE. What does that mean? It means that all the people working for the European Union, all the people working for NATO in Brussels, basically every time they take their mobile phone and make a call, it goes through a Chinese network. Is that intelligent? My personal opinion is definitely not. A lot of things have happened since 2020. In Belgium, Proximus have decided to rip and replace a Huawei network with a new European network. So in that way, there will be one network. But taking another example, I think it's like 2 weeks ago, we had the NATO summit in Madrid. Vodafone's network in Madrid is delivered by Huawei. There was in Wirtschaftswoche, which is a business newspaper in Germany, a big article that was a big concern. I haven't got it confirmed, but there was people who told me that Vodafone was asked to shut off the network in that part of Madrid during the NATO summit, because there were some people in NATO which fear that the Chinese will use these networks to spy. If you talk to Huawei, they will say it's not a problem, they won't do it, and they're nice people. Oh yes, I don't belong to that category. EU have made a 5G toolbox, which now is getting implemented, where they look at trusted vendor, non-trusted vendors, and of course Huawei and ZTE is declared as non-trusted vendors. And we see a number of operators which actually made a decision to rip and replace their Huawei networks with other networks, and we can see that the cost of doing that is non-existent as long as you're still in a process where you upgrade your network to new technology. As a European, I remember when we had this event last time in Guatemala. It was a short time after February 24th. And I think a lot of people were shocked what's going on. Some says we were not surprised after the Russians taking over Crimea. But the reality is that things have happened, and those things which happen. But one of the things which really makes me proud is the numbers of American and European companies which have pulled out of Russia, even lost billions of dollars and euros by doing it. We talk about thousands of companies. We talk about big companies who goes out and say to their shareholders, yes, our investment in Russia is lost. It cost our shareholders a lot of billions. We're sorry, but we do it. And why do they do it? These companies have a moral compass which they're navigating after. They know they have to be responsible for their customers, their employees, and a lot of other people to ensure that they actually are in line with these things. If we go a step further, we have seen the European Union started first back in March 2022 to do a ban on Russian Today and Sputnik on all EU networks. They have to remove these Russian propaganda TV channels from all the European networks. And some people agree with that, some disagree with it, but that's a reality. They have been removed from our networks. Canada and United Kingdom, to follow the same decision, decided to do the same. And actually, the implementation was done also in other countries like South Africa and so on. A lot of broadband providers, cable TV providers, satellite providers actually respected this and did it. May 30, the European Council decided to add another 3 Russian TV channels to the list, and basically a number of TV providers across Europe removed these things. And actually in May 8th, the US Department of Treasury, they basically said to US satellite providers, you are not allowed to provide services for Russians moving forwards. And Intelsat and Horizon, which is 2 big satellite companies, decided to remove the Russian TV channels for their platforms. In France, we have some French companies which have basically said, like Louis Vuitton, like Chanel, Michelin, like Citroën, which have decided to pull out of Russia. But in France, there's also a satellite provider called Eutelsat, which basically have decided to maintain their business in Russia. And what does that mean? That means that they operate one satellite, which is owned by the Russians, and they have their own satellite, and basically they are providing with TV to more than 15 million people in Russia, or households in Russia. So if we look at what's happening here right now, is actually we have a European, French, partly French government-owned satellite provider, which is helping the Russian to distribute all these Russian TV channels with all these Russian propagandas to 15 households in Russia. And I'm just saying is, what will have the biggest effect on Putin? That you remove his citizens' possibility to buy Chanel and Louis Vuitton bags, or getting access to his propaganda? My opinion, make Putin quiet. Basically, if we look at what's going on here, it's very obvious that Putin have this, what we call the Russian apparatus of propaganda, which basically is in these two TV providers, which are distributing all these TV channels, is like cable TV or satellite TV providers, is NTV Plus and Tricolor. NTV Plus is a part of Gazprom Holding Media. That's basically Gazprom, that's the Russian government. And basically, when we look at this, similar with Tricolor, which is owned partly by VTB Bank, and basically these companies are providing with Russian propaganda to Russians every day using French technology. And I have basically, when I saw this, I said to myself, this is crazy. I found a group of people in France which have tried to work hard to create transparency about this, tried to convince the French government to open their eyes and put a ban on these things, but not been successful. I went out and I succeeded to help them to get some press coverage because I found out the CEO of the company, she's actually from Denmark, and I actually know her. She's called Eva Berneke. She's a former McKinsey executive, and after that she was CEO of TDC in Denmark, which is the incumbent, the largest telecom operator in Denmark. And now she's sitting as the CEO there. And my opinion is that her moral compass is non-existing. How can you help Putin to distribute his propaganda? Let me say it very simple. Eva Berneke have been asking Danish media and a number of other media, why don't they stop doing business in Russia? And the answer is, we want to be neutral. And I just want to show you how this Danish-French interpretation of neutrality means. That means that they accept to send Russian TV channels through the satellite to 15 million households in Russia, and they have removed, after demand from the Russians, Western TV channels which have a different view of what's happening in Ukraine. This is neutrality. Sorry, I don't know what this has to do with neutrality. So let's go and set it in a different way. The Danish Diderot Committee is some really academic bunch of people, nerdy guys, which have a clear view about these things. And honestly, they're so bad at marketing. They're so bad at selling their message. So I thought I should give them some attention today. And please do me a favor, they even come with a proposal how this should be handled. And basically they have a vision. Say either shut off for the Russian channels or open for the Western channels so that the Russians can get access to Western news again. Let them get an alternative. And if we move a step further and say, what's happening right now? We are living in a world where a lot of companies have been using their moral compass to pull out of Russia. But we must also say that a lot of those companies' services and products have been replaced by companies from China. HP and Dell moves out of Russia. That's a problem because the Russians can't get computers, can't get servers. Lenovo stays in Russia. Lenovo deliver the same equipment. Ericsson, Nokia, and Cisco pulls out of Russia. Huawei and ZTE and other Chinese vendors stay in Russia and supply the Russians with these things. The list is very long. And honestly, we need to understand if we're going to fight Putin, we have to include China. We basically need to use our buying power and say to Chinese companies who do business in Russia, if you do business in Russia, you don't do business in Europe. You don't do business in USA. You don't do business in Latin America. You must choose who do you want to do business with. We have to use our buying partner. Let me say it very simple. If you do business with a Chinese company who do business in Russia, you're supporting Putin financially. And honestly, the difference between China and Russia is marginal. It's two authoritarian systems, but China basically have taken it to the higher level, using more technology to surveillance people, under-suppressing people, etc. So let me say it very simple. My conclusion is very simple. The moral compass points in a very clear direction. We need to support Ukraine. We need to stop Russia. And we need to go a little bit further than stopping the oligarchs' possibility of sailing around in their big yachts, or rich Russians' possibilities to buy Louis Vuitton, Chanel, and other fancy-smancy products. We need to stop this now. We need to tell the French government, we need to tell the European Union that we need to stop Eutelsat's way of distributing Russian propaganda to 15 million Russian households. 15 million households. Can you imagine if 15 million Russians couldn't watch Putin tonight? Beautiful. Basically, it is not difficult. It's a simple decision. The Americans have set the decision. We just have to say to Eutelsat, you should not do business in Russia. And they have two choices. If they can't use their own moral compass in stopping doing business like thousands of other companies, the politicians must take action, and we must go in that direction. So let me say it very simple. If you want to have more knowledge about these things and Chinese equipment and what's going on, go to my website, which is strandconsult.dk. If you want to know more about Eutelsat, what they're doing, and look at articles being printed in different media, go on dennisdiderot.net. Honestly, I only have one wish. That is, we need to help the Ukrainians to stop Russia and Putin. Thank you.
Thank you very much, John, for your remarks. I will have a small announcement to do for you. There's